Hello, I'd like you to start today by just thinking about what makes our fabulous school as successful as it is. What is good about Admiral Lord Nelson? What could we improve? There are always things to improve, even though we are brilliant. And what other types of schools do you know that exist in the local area? Okay, so a title for today. What are the different types of schools in the UK? That's what we're going to be looking at today. Lots of technical terms around schools, and it's important you understand the difference between a private school, a state school, an academy, and so on. So on the next few slides, there are some information about the following types of schools: faith schools, private schools, academies, and state schools. And what you're going to do, if you're in school, you'll have been given a sheet to complete information on. But if not, on the next slide, I'll show you the information that you need to capture about all of these school types by using the information on the PowerPoint slide. So that's what you need to find out. So for each of them, that's an example of the state school one. Each of them, you need to find out who they're run by, are they free, what their national curriculum looks like, or whether they even follow the national curriculum, and then some examples in the local area of these types of schools. So, state schools first of all. So state schools are the most common type of school in the UK. These schools are controlled by local education authorities or councils, like for us, Portsmouth City Council, and they're funded by the government. They're free to attend and they follow the national curriculum. So an example of that local to us would be Mayfield. Independent schools are next, so private schools, in other words, another way of wording those. So independent schools are increasingly popular in the UK. They're called private schools, but they also can be known as public schools, which is a little bit confusing. And these are schools that are run independently. They're not funded by the government. Parents pay to send their students to them. And the fees can be quite expensive. So looking back at 2015, 2016, you're looking at sort of 16 or so thousand a year, around about, so between 15 and 20,000 pounds a year to go to a private school for one child. So they're pretty expensive. They are very much affordable by just the few in society. And these schools can choose to follow the national curriculum, but they don't have to. So examples in our local area, we've got Portsmouth Grammar School or perhaps Mayville, both of which are up towards Southsea that you might have seen. Academies, so we're an academy, Trafalgar are academies. So these are publicly funded schools that are independent of government control. So they are still publicly funded. In other words, we don't charge people to go to the school, we receive our money from the government, but not from local council, so it comes straight to us from the government. And they're run by an academy trust which employs the staff. So for example, ALNS in Trafalgar, we are part of the Sultan's Academy Trust. Some academies are sponsored by businesses or universities. So for example, Chichester University in our area sponsors some of the local schools, and these pay money to help maintain the school. They don't have to follow the national curriculum, but they still have the same admissions rules as state schools, and most would follow the national curriculum. And then finally, faith schools. So St Edmunds and Oaklands are examples of faith schools in our area, and these are similar to state schools and they can be funded by local education authorities, but they are also often funded by church groups, for example the Catholic Church in these examples, for example. However, they're different because they have a different admissions criteria. So, for example, in our school, in a normal state school, the first admission for coming to school, after we've allowed people to come who've perhaps got a special educational need, it is students who live in the catchment area or have a brother or sister at the school. In a faith school, after we've looked at students who have a special educational need reason to come to the school, the next reason down that children can select the school is usually that they are of that faith. So all the Catholic children would be admitted first to St Edmunds, for example, then all the Christians, and then they would look at catchment or siblings and so on. And these schools follow the national curriculum, but they can choose what they want to teach in terms of their religious education. Anyone can apply to go there. It's just generally they have a preference for people of their religion. So private schools are becoming much more popular in the UK for a number of reasons. Firstly, people seem to have more disposable income at the moment to be able to afford them. Secondly, people are beginning to desire to want to live the upper class life. People are aspiring to a different lifestyle. There's more child-centred families. So we've talked about child-centred families before. This idea that people are willing to spend their money on their children's education, perhaps over holidays or the latest car and so on and so forth. And also there's more demand for better education in the UK. So unfortunately, you'll know from things in the press or looking at league tables and so on and so forth that in some areas schools simply are not good enough. And if that people can afford to send their children to a private school, they are choosing to do so. So on the next slide, there are advantages and disadvantages of private schools. And what I would like you to do is split your page into two, advantages on one side, disadvantages on the other, and simply split the statements into the two types and jot them down into your columns. So they're on the next pages. So here you are, here are some disadvantages and advantages for you. So I'm just going to pick out the top two. Private schools have lower teacher to student ratio, which means classes are smaller and students receive more attention. So clearly that would be an advantage. Private schools have more parental input. They pay for their children to attend, which means they are more involved. Again, that would be an advantage. So have a go down, look at the advantages, look at the disadvantages. And finally, this is just this slide again. And what I would like you to do is have a look at that step up task. I want you to spend a paragraph writing down your response to this. Private schooling is better than state schooling. Do you agree? Try and think like a sociologist. So give your own view, but if you can and you're ready for extending yourself, who might not agree with you and what might they think? If you can, think about what a functionalist would say, or a Marxist would say, or a feminist would say. Thank you for listening.